So, welcome to this masterclass, and it's all about strategies to progressing your career. Welcome to everybody who's watching online, and obviously those who will be watching the replay. And before I delve a bit deeper, let me just introduce myself and tell you why I am so passionate about helping people to progress to the next level. I spent about 20 years in the financial industry, and most of the time I really enjoyed it. It's a pressured environment, but it's also an environment where you learn a lot, where you're intellectually stimulated, and you get a lot of opportunities. One of the opportunities I got was to go on a business tour to China and Singapore, and you can see my group there in front of the bird's nest in Beijing. And we just found that the Chinese organizations are slightly different, maybe sometimes a lot different from the ones we know. In China, you get a very senior team that oversees everything in the organization. And one of the organizations we visited, the CEO would stand at the gate and actually welcome in the morning, every morning, welcome all the workers into the factory. Another interesting thing is that when you join an organization, you start almost in the shop floor, you work through all the departments, all the production processes, and at the end of it, you really know that organization very, very well. We also found that it's a very, very hierarchical structure. So, interesting, very interesting experience to understand how each area is, or how businesses are run differently across the world. After financial industry, I thought I need a little bit of a different environment. Went to an advertising agency, incredibly different environment because obviously in advertising you have a lot of right brain thinkers, a lot of creativity, and in the financial industry you've got all these left brain thinkers. But at some point in my career, I just felt as if I'm not motivated. It felt as if I'm missing something in my life. And when I started looking at what really energized me most, I found that it was helping people, maybe find a new purpose, find a new career. I could see somebody is stuck and just help them along the way to see what really they want to do in life. So I changed that into a new career, and I first became a rapid transformational therapist. And the reason why I was attracted to rapid transformational therapy is the sentiment that we work with the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind is so rich in terms of beliefs, in terms of things that we can change in order to have a better life. And the transformational coaching is part of the my focus to help career professionals. I also love neuroscience, just the sentiment that we have this incredible resource between our ears and how we can use it more optimally. There you can see my son. He is 15 years old, starting to get into those teenage years. And then another thing about me is that I absolutely love being out in nature. It is where I feel we can rebalance because nature is in balance. And when you move into nature, you become balanced as well. I love scuba diving and desert camping. Those are the top two things that I would choose to do if I go and when I go out in nature, because we all know these days travel is not that easy with all the lockdowns and restrictions. So, that in a nutshell is more about me. Let me go into the next slide, which is all about what career professionals want. Now, what I define as a career professional is anybody who takes their career seriously, who wants to move to the next level, who really has a lot of commitment, effort, and ambition in their careers. And as a career professional, and I was one at some point in my life, now I'm a more of a therapist and a coach. I don't know if that makes me less of a career professional, but yeah, that's a debate for another day. So I know career professionals want to get ahead in their career. They want to get promoted. They want to feel as if what they do is valued. And we all know This is how organizations work. Often you can only increase your base salary if you move to a different level or to a different department or unit or specialist area. And I've also found a lot of clients coming to a career, and then at that point in their career, they were sure they made the right decision. Halfway through the career, or maybe 10, 20, 10 years in, 8 to 10 years in, they realize they actually want to do something different. And it's then to pivot into a new role, a new company, or a new industry. And then I think we all want to leave a legacy. We want to be part of something bigger. We want to make a difference. We want to feel that we've made a difference in life. And unfortunately, instead, we find we're often not being recognized, overlooked for positions. We taking on more responsibility as a result. We think that is what's going to get us ahead. Do more, work harder. And then because we're not getting the recognition, we're starting to feel less valued, less confident. And if you had a little bit of self doubt, the self doubt almost increases. If you had a slight imposter, the imposter just becomes so much more pronounced. So I want to introduce you to Sue and Andrea. You'll see Andrea on the next slide. Sue was an A performer. She was considered talent. She had a few years experience. But after 4 years in her role, she was still not being promoted. But if you look at Sue's approach, she always asked people for input on a marketing plan. She was a marketing manager. And that behavior was born out of this belief that she could not write. And she developed that belief in her first job when somebody told her, her manager told her she's just not able to write. So Sue carried that belief throughout her career. And you'll see later on why our mindset is actually the basis of our behavior. So, this mindset of I'm not able to write impacted um, her thinking and the way she acted. Now, on the other hand, there was Andrea. Andrea got promoted after the first 18 months in the job. Now, what Andrea did differently is she networked. And the networking was almost not a strategy, but the strategy was to get to know the business a lot better than she obviously did because she was new to the business. And because she did that, she came across departments or units that could help her, that she could help, and therefore she added value. And she built her profile in the business because she reached out to other people. Now, she was not more talented. She didn't work harder. She just had a different strategy, and that strategy paid off. So, I want you to also consider this. I will go into a bit more detail later on, but these two strategies, one working harder, but slight confidence problem, and somebody who came in and just didn't really feel the rules of the organization, the system, how things work. And because she wasn't too bogged down with all the rules and the culture and who you should and shouldn't speak to, she actually benefited her career in that organization. And these are two real people. It really happened, so it's not made up people. And I think the understanding is, who do you associate with? Who do you most resonate with? Is it Sue, who's got this little uncertainty about something and it manifests in the behavior, or are you like Andrea, who kind of did something out of the ordinary and it paid off for her? But before I go into the detail about strategies, I always love to look what Google, if you Google, how do I get promoted? I found these three pieces of insight, and it's like 13 ways and 7 simple steps, but we know it's not that simple. But what I found very interesting is the ones that I've marked in orange that highlighted. Make your boss obsolete. Now, yes, it could be a strategy, but it feels like you're getting into competition with your boss. And do you really want to go there? Summarize your work visually. Don't we do that in any case when it's needed? And then cozy up to HR is the other one that I found a little bit circumspect. Why? Because HR doesn't make decisions about promotions. Yes, they play a role and they might give insight and angles, but cozying up to HR, I don't think is the only thing that's going to get you promoted. Now, what I've found very useful in terms of the other strategies is raise your team members' performance. That is how you become, you almost show that you are management quality, and make your boss aware that you want a promotion. I think we often uh, use this sentiment, or we base our engagement with the sentiment people know that you want to get promoted, but you can mention that to your boss, because I think it is important for your boss to know, because then they start looking out for certain characteristics, behaviors that you um, that you manifest in order to get promoted. I think the prove your leader is another very useful thing to note. Ask for feedback from your supervisor. Again, that is very useful to get some insight. Although I always want to put a kind of like a proviso here, that's not the only input you should use, because it's only one version of you, and you might want to ask colleagues, you might want to ask team members for their input as well. Get noticed in the workplace. Now, there's some strategies around that. So, get noticed in the workplace, I think, is very important, because if people don't know about you, how are you going to get promoted? And then again, back to demonstrate your leadership skills, and carry on with the fact that you are an important member of a team and you enable others. Now, all the other um, pieces of or notes or steps there, I think is kind of like part of the job. You know, it's almost you feel that is just the base level of things that you need to do in order to do your job, not even get promoted. Keep a positive attitude, display commitment, be exceptional, make money, get clear expectations from your boss. Again, really good idea, but if you just always implement instructions, will you get promoted? So the stuff that I didn't highlight there was stuff that I thought, or elements or actions that I thought is actually it's expected in any case. So yeah, that's just an interesting bit about, let's look at what Google says. But what is for me more important is looking at real strategies, real ways that you can get promoted. And there's often four things that people generally do. One of them, or a combination. Strategy one is work harder, take on more responsibility, and prove yourself. Yes, again, very important, but I think that is just your ticket to the game. People also network. They believe that if you build a relationship with your manager and you get known, and you're kind of like more of a buddy than a co-worker, maybe that's the way you get promoted. Build your profile, self promote. That, I think, is important, because if you're not going to back yourself, who is going to back you? But that's also not the only thing that you can do. The last strategy is to work on a project that catapults you to the next level. And I've seen this quite often, because there's this one project that the organization regards as very important. You do your work, you do it well, you get noticed, and when the project ends, you find yourself being promoted. So, but that is often not a very action orientated strategy. What I mean by that is that you might not decide that that is how you're going to get promoted. Being invited to be part of a project, or to being allocated to a project, is sometimes not really your choice, but somebody else's choice. But understand that that could be an incredible opportunity for you. So, what I found, and this is why I decided to really dispel this myth that working harder is going to get you that promotion. It's not a sustainable strategy. And why it is not sustainable is because you have a finite amount of time and a certain amount of workload that you can do within that period of time. Because if you, for example, just had to write a letter is going to take you 2 hours to write. You can't fast track that. You can't change it. 2 hours is what you need. So a lot of the elements in our work has got a fairly, I think, reasonable time space in which you can complete it. Now, if you start out, you must probably have enough time and not a huge workload. And as you continue, the workload is manageable. You get to a point where you can still finish and have a bit of free time. But then you get to a point, if you take on more and do more, it's that space and time when you start having 10-hour days, 16-hour days, and you're even working on weekends. Downside of that is that there's no time for growth. You are moving from the one thing to the next. You're not growing as an individual. You're not growing your skills. You're not growing you're not adapting anything new. You're basically just maintaining where you are. Perpetually tired. Don't know if anybody of you have been in that situation. I've been there where you actually possibly already burnt out. You just don't know it. You just didn't have, didn't realize it yet. And that's the point in time when you go for a holiday or a long weekend, and when you're back at work the next day, you feel as tired and drained as before. So working harder, you have to maintain a level of productivity, but taking on more constantly and thinking that is going to get you promoted is not a sustainable strategy, because in the end, you will just get tired and burned out. And then there's a different discussion that you need to have. So, why did I come up with a career pyramid? Firstly, because my mind loves structure. I love looking at things in a more structural way, but also to say that there's a foundation level, and that is almost just your ticket into the game. That is what is almost just expected of you. And let me go into a bit more detail about the foundation phase. So I see the foundation as the skills, the experience, the qualifications, the training, the dedication, the commitment that you actually need just to do your job. So you you come into a job or a career or where you are, and this is the base level of everything that you need. And because people only focus on this level, what you find is that the sentiment of working harder, taking on more responsibility, because you only focus on the foundation, you only focus on what you actually just really need to do and have to do. Now, coming back to the other strategies that you can employ at this level is, like I said earlier, with the strategies, one of those four strategies is look for a project that the organization finds valuable. And you can either volunteer to participate in a project like that, or you can initiate a project like that. And you would know your organization really well. It's either to generate income, innovation, change management, anything that is going to improve efficiency, productivity, cooperation, anything in the organization. So that is one strategy. Look for that project. Then a good approach as well is to manage your relationships up and down. I find we often stuck in managing relationships down, but we forget the up relationships. And up relationships is not only with your management, but also with other senior um, related uh, um, departments or units within your organization. Work across departments, and that is what Andrea did really well. And possibly, I didn't go into that much detail, but it wasn't a strategy coming into the organization. Because she wanted to get to know the organization, she got to meet a lot of different people and found that they had problems, and therefore she could solve it for them. Then audit your skills and see what you need and where you might need to grow. Two reasons for this. One is because there's so many new things happening in the digital world, and we need to be always ahead of that. And then the second thing is, if you're in this phase of working a bit harder, longer, taking on more responsibility, you might have neglected that area. So focus on that, do an audit, and possibly even do an audit once a year or twice a year. But I think it's very important to see how you need to grow and where you need to develop. And then the last thing is get to know the business really well. Because if you know the business really well, you can also become that problem solver that can see connections between units, or you can initiate that project that is going to change things. If you're new into organization, obviously a lot easier to get to know the organization because you can actively set out to do it. If you've been in the organization for a while, it might look a bit, feel a bit out of place, but still continue with a approach to meet with other managers, meet with other colleagues in other units, other departments, because as you reach out, you will find that they will reciprocate. So those are the other strategies when you just look at the foundation phase of that, where you kind of like doing your work, and you just adopt a few different approaches in doing your work. Now, the next level is where we look at mindset. Why I find mindset so fascinating is because, in my view, this is where a lot of the beliefs or the limitations sit in if and when you get promoted. And when I look at mindset, for me, the definition is that there are beliefs that you have that are true and empowering, but there are also beliefs that are false and disempowering. Now, often it is for you to understand which beliefs are actually running your life. Is it the true and empowering beliefs, or is it the false and disempowering beliefs? Because remember Sue in the beginning, her disempowering belief was that she couldn't write, that she didn't have the ability to write. That translated into certain behaviors. And yeah, I don't have many strategies just because each individual has got their own mindset and limitations and empowering beliefs and disempowering beliefs that they might want to look at. And when you work with me, this is where we look at your unique strategy, your unique approach as to how we're going to look at mindset and which behaviors are being impacted by your mindset. But before you get there, anybody can approach their beliefs or need to look at their beliefs and evaluate their beliefs. And it's really to do introspection and find out which beliefs are empowering, which beliefs are disempowering. And often the way to do that is to ask yourself, what don't you do because of a belief? For example, you don't do public speaking because you have a fear of public speaking. And how does that impact your career? If it's anything, said you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, if it's anything between 7 and 10, you really need to do something about it, because if it's impacting your career, then obviously getting to the next level is going to be a lot more difficult. So look at your mindset, and then specifically the empowering beliefs and the disempowering beliefs, and which of those beliefs are really impacting your life and having a direct impact on how you behave and what it is preventing you from doing. So going on to the next slide, and this is why the mindset and behavior for me is so closely connected, because your mindset is either going to enable certain behaviors or it's going to disable certain behaviors. And what we find with mindset, when there's a problem with a disempowering belief, it often manifests as inertia, that feeling that you want to do something, but you're actually not quite getting there. And it's to understand what is that, why you're not getting there. And it's maybe you want to apply for a new job, but you decided that at the beginning of the year, 3 months later, you still haven't, you've only looked through jobs. You haven't actually taken that next step. What is causing that inertia? Why are you not doing that? Fear, and generally, fear is an indication that something in the mindset is not quite right. Fear of public speaking. Incidentally, uh, the fear of public speaking is possibly the fear that we work with the most. You get other fears, fear of flying, fear of heights, fear of small spaces, but the fear of public speaking is a very real and very relevant fear that people have generally. Then decision making. Decision making is also a behavior that manifests, that has a mindset issue behind it. Because if you need to make decisions, you need to be fairly certain about your decision. And if you're not confident, you're not going to make that decision that is going to feel like you are in control. Speaking out in meetings, speaking out in public. Again, mindset somewhere sitting below that. How you communicate, again, could be confidence, could be imposter, feeling like an imposter. Now, again, with the behaviors, because they are so closely linked with mindset, if you work with me, we will find out what the mindsets are that's holding you back. We will look at the behaviors that you should be undertaking, and then we help you through that process. It's accountability, because if you know somebody is kind of like expecting you to do something, you're more inclined to do it. And it's also deciding how you take those steps, because it's often difficult to go from not doing something to actually doing it on a large scale. So what we'll do is we'll help you step by step getting to that position where you actually eventually end up maybe speaking out in public, making those decisions, and overcoming those fears. So again, it's about auditing your behavior. What is fear stopping you from doing? Uh, why are you escalating decisions? Why are you not communicating, and why are you not implementing something? And this leads me to the strategies for the next level. And this is where it gets really interesting, because these are things that you can do start off even the next day. So if you want a promotion, there's one, two, three, four things that I think is very important to do. First is elevate your communication, and it broaden your communication, who you communicate to. Let's take, for example, you have this really incredible report, but you only distribute it to your manager. Maybe there's another unit, another department that might benefit from this. So think about who you can actually include in your communication. But once you've decided to do that, just be consistent. Uh, do that. If you decide it's a monthly report, do that every month. And then the effectiveness of communication. I think this is where we need to be aware of the words we use when we communicate. For example, I've decided that words like just, really, maybe, might, and please I'll still use, but I use it a lot less, because those are words that almost put you in a position of saying, um, I'm not assertive enough. I depend on your views and your grace to do something for me. So look at the words in your repertoire that speaks to not being confident, not being assertive. And I know we want to be diplomatic, but sometimes being too diplomatic actually might seem that you're not confident. So that is look at words to avoid, how you can increase your effectiveness. Then we look at decision making. Now, decision making is quite an important, I never know if it's a skill or a talent or a need to have, but it's something that as a manager you need to be able to do. And a decision is something that you need to be comfortable with, and be comfortable that the buck stops with you. If you make this decision, you need to be able to back that decision and back yourself. And obviously, you can already read that there's confidence coming into that quite significantly. And if you don't feel confident, making a decision that you're going to back is possibly not going to happen. Now, when you look at decisions, and again, there's a bit of introspection required, you ask yourself, how often do I escalate a decision? And those decisions that I escalate, why am I escalating it? Is it really something that I should not be, a decision that I should not be making, or I'm just scared to make a decision? Um, and, decisions are, I think decisions are an opportunity to prove yourself. But if you fear making a decision, like I said, there's maybe a confidence mindset thing that sits below that. Then promoting yourself, and it's almost for me a combination between promoting yourself and backing yourself. But as part of that, you can't really promote or back yourself if you don't know your story. And once again, if you work with me, what we'll do is we'll develop your own professional story. It's less about your career progression as it is about who you are. What are you known for? If you're known as the innovator, we use that and promote you as an innovator, because I've seen in a very different environment where people call them the revitalizer, or the seer, or the difference maker. So what are you? Do you know yourself well enough to actually understand what are you known for? What do you do well? What comes so naturally to you? The last thing is act like a manager. Now, we often do not all of us have a really good example to follow, because there are some managers out there that I don't think should ever become a manager, but they're not really good examples to follow. So it's almost before you get to a manager level, decide what are your values going to be, how you're going to engage with people. And then when you become a manager, when you go to the next level, you might already manage a team, but now you're being elevated to another leadership position. It's quite a tricky situation, because you're so used to engaging with people on a certain level, and you've become familiar with them, and now you're elevated to a next level, and you're now in a different role, in a different decision making level, if I can say, if I can explain it like that. So you can't really do the same things that you did before. So before you become a manager, or before you go to the next level, start unpacking for yourself, what are your values going to be, how are you going to engage? Because the moment you start defining that for yourself, you start almost living that already. So yeah, act like a manager is a difficult one. But again, once if you decide to work with me, we'll unpack that for you to define your own best management style. So the last part we're looking at, and it's fitting into promoting yourself, understanding yourself, is really how you present yourself in the organization, internally and externally. And before you can present yourself, you really need to know yourself very well. Understand what it is that makes you tick. If you go for a job interview and you don't have a professional story, your professional storyline, if they ask you, tell me about yourself, what we do is we start with your first job and then your second job. And they can read that in your CV. What you rather want to do is tell them what motivates you, what have you learned, what they can expect from you, because that is going to sell you into a new organization. Um, so, again, I've already discussed that when you do your profile, or looking at profiling and backing yourself, a lot of people don't really know themselves. And then this element of networking, I think it's so important. And if I look back at my career, I I wish I networked better and more consistently, because it is through one's network that you get to know about opportunities, that you kind of start learning about new developments. And it's not only internal in the organization, it's external as well. But what I found in my career, and maybe it's the same in your career, is I was so intent on working harder that I didn't have time for networking. it was such a difficult thing because you do need time. You need an hour or two during the day to just be able to network. So networking you also need time for. You need, in my view, a plan, and I'll take you through a bit of a structure that I've proposed here. So I think we've discussed some of the solutions is understand what are you known for. If you don't work with, if you decide not to work with me, these are things that you can implement tomorrow. And that is why I wanted to do this presentation. So it's not only to convince you to work with me, but also to say is this is what you can do tomorrow if you want to progress. Write down what you are known for. Are you an innovator, problem solver, organizer? Understand how you want to present yourself. Develop your professional story, and manage your visual identity across social platforms. And that's why for me, it's at the pinnacle of everything. Everything contributes to this profile that you have. And once you understand a lot about yourself, you can then present yourself in a different way. And then that networking, develop your plan internally and externally. So let's just look at the profile quickly. And I've just used LinkedIn as an example here. Um, there's a list of things that you can look at. You can look at really good profiles. You can look at profiles that aren't that great, but a profile picture, use that space at the back. Maybe you can do a little design there, put your organization up there, what you are known for, your story. Just look at your LinkedIn profile because that will also help you guide what is your identity. How do you want to present yourself? And again, we will have a look if you decide to work with me. We will have a look and develop your own visual identity, your brand. A lot of people call it a brand. So next one is the networking, and do a networking plan. Decide who you want to network with. Plot names in there. So for me, the blue block is really people that you seldom going to network with, but they might be important. Um, but you might not spend that much time with them. Now, there's a build and maintain block. The build is people that would be important to your job, internal and external, but you have not really made an effort to build a relationship with them. And then the bottom part is obviously the maintain. And again, it might just depend how much energy you want to put in it. And then that high value is really internal and external individuals that you might need in future, that you want to build a relationship with, that is going to benefit you in some way or another. Possibly just people that you like-minded people. I often think it's not just about who can make a difference in your life from a professional point of view, but there are individuals that you just enjoy. You enjoy how their mind works, or how they think, and obviously we want to spend more time with them. So develop your own networking plan and engage with people. I really think one can become so isolated, especially in this day and age. So this networking is a really important part in your career plan. So we're getting to the end of this presentation, and my sentiment is just my advice is just look at every layer of the career pyramid and audit yourself. See how you are doing. Understand what you do really well and you need to do more of, but what are you not doing because there is a mindset issue or a disempowering belief that sits and almost guides how you behave, how you act, how you present yourself. And once you fix that, everything else fits. Everything else just falls into place. And I just an example. I saw a client who, and she gave me permission to talk about this. So I saw a client who felt didn't have enough confidence, and she was actually worried that she might lose her job. And we worked on her confidence. We worked on some of the elements, how she saw herself. And 3 months later, when I checked in with her, found out how she was doing, she said, "You will not believe this. I received a call from my manager. They are going to review my salary because when they did a review after our session, obviously a few weeks after our session, they found that she was somebody that they need to retain, and they need to retain her by offering her a better salary." And she said, "I would not in my wildest dreams have thought that this was possible, that after doing a confidence session, that I would present myself so differently, because all of a sudden she took on more responsibilities of a manager. She engaged more, she viewed her opinions, and she just presented herself in a more assertive and confident way. And that was the end result. So if you tweak something somewhere along with mindset, you might even get a result that you could not have imagined. So, and it leads to the second point there. If you feel stuck, make an effort, decide how you can overcome it. And I've shared quite a few ways that you can advance your career. Maybe you need to look at a strategy and all the little actions you need to take, possibly more than one, possibly all four that I shared in the beginning. Work hard is just kind of part of the job. Then you look at networking, promoting yourself, and taking on or volunteering for a project where you could catapult yourself. So this is an offer I want to make. If you think you need to, or you need somebody to help you through it, obviously my belief is we can do things on our own. You can advance your career on your own, absolutely. Um, I want to offer a program that if you work with me, I believe we will do it so much quicker. You will have an accountability partner in me that will, make sure that you do the things that you set out to do, because it's only human to sometimes push things like that aside, sometimes because they're difficult, sometimes because we don't want to put in the effort. But and then the second thing is we will develop a plan that is tailor-made for you. And it's always good to have somebody looking out from the outside, looking in and helping you, advising you on your way. So if you want to get promoted, leave that legacy, increase your base salary, or even pivot to a new industry or team, this is what I'm offering: a level up and get ahead program. I'm launching that on the 1st of September. It's 8 weeks, group sessions, individual session, and then I'm offering one RTT session. If you have a mindset issue that really, really is preventing you from moving forward, it's optional. Don't have to do it if you don't feel like it. If you feel that you can overcome it in another way, but I would recommend that. So I decided to launch this now because I believe that this will set you up for 2022, by focusing on your career now, leveling up, getting to that next level. You will be well set for 2022 to really step into your true potential. I've also just decided that I will offer a modular option, also launching on the 1st of September, that we will only look at certain areas, not the whole pyramid, uh, possibly only your profile, which includes your brand, how you present yourself, and networking, and then also the professional story. And the other option is to look at mindset and behavior. Each of these will just have 3 individual sessions. I will include group sessions, but it all depends how many people I get onto the modular option. And again, it's also there to help you focus on certain things that you might think you need more help with. Maybe you don't need the whole pyramid. Maybe you just need elements of it, and that is just an option. And I know people, a lot of coaches advise you not to have options, but I love options, and that's why I always offer options so that people can decide what they want. That, in closing, is all about me, all about strategies to really get you to the next level. And I really hope to see you on this on LinkedIn. That's where I meet a lot of my new clients, and possibly hope to see you and work with you. If you want to connect with me, my profile, either directly through email or on WhatsApp, happy to connect. But thank you so much for tuning in. It's really been a pleasure to share some of my ideas, some of my insights, and we'll engage with you further.